Hi guys, this is Ranjit, and as you can see, I'm a very different setup. Actually, I'm in Bangalore, and in fact, we had a banter. And Anuj is here from Xiaomi. He's the CM of Xiaomi, and I asked him we were having a banter on Twitter. If you're in Bangalore, why don't you join? So I asked Sandeep to also join, and Sandeep told let's shoot a video AMA. What do you call this? AMA podcast or whatever.
Yeah.
So I told him, okay, fine. As I'm in Bangalore, I'll do that, but I won't get the camera. So he told, okay. But he got a very fancy setup here. I don't know, we'll call it podcast. So the whole thing is here, I think so, Anuj, I can ask you any questions or whatever. Or also, as I'm using this smartphone, I had purchased this one. Also, I have a lot of questions. In fact, I've got quite a few questions from the users also.
Sure.
So some of my are personal, but some of them from the users. The first question, I don't know who's going to answer. This is a tricky question. This is about the 14 Ultra. And to be very frank, in India at least, there was a big thing coming, not coming, coming, not coming. Even on social media, there were a lot of people trolling. People asked me also. In fact, I replied to a few of them because you had sent me the Xiaomi 14 review on it. But when I asked about this one, there was a silence. So I also tweeted this is not coming. And even on social media. So my question is, I don't know who's going to answer. This is a tricky question. You guys just launched this device because of just peer pressure from social media, or you were going to launch it? First question.
Yeah, so we had to obviously plan for it. But, one thing that we think, and, you've been here for a long time in the tech space. Both of us have also been around. We think the sense of surprise sometimes is missing.
Okay. So it was planned.
It was planned. It was planned.
You guys got a lot of trolling, trust me, because of that.
Yeah.
So we planned it in such a way. Even actually, I remember doing some media meetings earlier on in February, and in those media meetings also in Delhi,
you guys,
we got asked.
Because I asked even others I know in the industry. They're like, nahi aayega.
And at that point, Sandeep was doing the camera testing, but he had that phone in his back pocket, but he couldn't talk about it.
Okay.
Largely, the idea was that sense of euphoria, that excitement that earlier we used to get, right?
Correct.
So we know that there's a launch, there's some new product coming in, but we don't know everything about it. Or sometimes we don't even know if something like this is actually coming.
Okay.
And that excitement with it.
Yeah.
So we wanted to keep it secretive. We've not seen that happen in the tech space, at least for the last 4-5 years.
Correct.
Actually, the last big surprise that we pulled off was the Note 7 Pro.
Yeah.
Note 7 Pro, also we went on the stage. This was February of 2019.
Correct.
And everyone was expecting Note 7 alone to come, including some of our competition. And then we just went and dropped the Note 7 Pro. So we thought this was a great device.
Okay.
It's meant for the people who understand technology, and I'm sure they all have been missing out on this excitement.
Yeah.
But this is very different from the, as Anush told, traditional tech industry, because even before a device is coming, at least in India, you hype it like crazy, right?
Correct.
Yeah.
So this is a very different take, I would say.
Yeah. So, this phone is not from a sales objective.
Okay.
This phone's core objective is to change photography, or smartphone photography.
Yeah, I agree. I purchased this one. I'll tell you my story. Why did I purchase this one? Last year, you guys sent me the 13
Pro, yes.
And it was a review unit, so I had it for about 3 weeks, if I recall. And I took a lot of photographs or whatever, then it was sent back. And I missed that phone when I was traveling.
Okay.
So this year I thought okay, if it's launching, let me buy it, because again, you send a review unit, you'll take it back after 2 weeks. And the thing is that even with the 13 Pro, of course, this is continuing. And I think so a person who's going to buy this camera is going to buy it for the camera thing.
Correct.
Yes, though it's a flagship, everything is flagship, but it's the camera. And it's the photographs that you get. That is the taste that I got even with the 13 Pro, and that continues.
Yeah.
Maybe Sandeep can answer this. I don't know why. At least with this smartphone, the photographs that you take with this one don't look very digital. They have, dare I say, that slight DSLR look, not over sharpened.
Correct. Yeah.
So what is that makes this one different? Because 13 Pro also had that vibes, same vibes I'm getting with this one.
So I think somewhere along the line, we stopped looking at photos as an art form of sorts.
Okay.
We started looking at it from a very, I would say, quantitative perspective, dissecting the image, trying to see that, okay, the sharpness is on a scale of 1 to 10, this is how it is. or how the saturation is, and putting metrics to all this
Okay.
sort of diluted the entire proposition of what photography should be.
It didn't
right?
feel real.
Yeah.
Generally, I would say,
Correct.
again, still with even the flagship, a lot of flagship smartphones, you look at the photograph critically, they look digital.
Correct. Yeah.
That is,
Essentially, it is, we started looking at the specifications of a photograph
Yes.
rather than what that photograph was.
Correct. Yeah. Because the greatest photos in history, no one even cares what camera it was captured on, right?
yes.
But it sort of became like the first question that people ask, what did you shoot this on?
Yeah.
Yes.
That shouldn't matter. But because now you capture this, in fact, like you said, no one's actually thinking, was this a phone or a camera? They are like, oh, it's great photo.
Yes.
And that's what I believe was missing in the industry. And very proud to say that I think we have sort of brought that back with our Xiaomi Leica devices. I think that's been a huge step forward. And I think if others are following, then great to see that. Yeah.
Yeah, because naturally, I would say photos when you take with smartphones are mostly super sharp, and even if you use a DSLR, you generally in reality everything is not that sharp.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes, yeah. And that's just to try and edge out everyone else saying that, okay, this is sharper. Because that's a very tangible thing. People are like, let me look at the sharpness, let me pixel peep and do it. But sort of takes away from photography in general, because it's not just that, right? There's
Okay.
so many other things. Like there is something about a great image that you can't really quantify. But you just like it because there is a feel, there's a vibe to that entire image that makes it stand out from the rest, right?
Okay.
And even the greatest photographs in history, like many of the ones that we have seen that are captured on Leica, like the photo of Che Guevara that was there, which was shot on Leica. It's a photo that was shot from far away. There's a bit of blur to it. However, that impact that the photo had, technically, maybe it's not the perfect image. It's not right, without any blur, without, the sharpness there. But it still creates that impact. And we have seen all these T-shirts, stickers, and it's been everywhere. So the impact of a photo is so much more than these things that we often look at, which is dissecting it and saying that this is how much it is on a scale of 1 to 10 or, 1 to 100, whatever. Yeah.
And just to tell you guys, for example, I know Sandeep from such a long time. In fact, before coming to Xiaomi, he also had a channel called Revletless. Still in my address book, it's Sandeep Revletless. And it's not just now. You have been that camera nerd for such a long time. And whenever I used to have some social media banter, some people telling this camera is like this and that, I used to check your channel. Okay, has Sandeep actually put out a video on it? Let's look, because his eye is very, very critical. That's why you get too deep into these things.
I think it's both a good thing and a bad thing.
Yes.
But I think especially when you're working at Xiaomi and we have Leica team also, it sort of helps because they are also people who are committed to that sort of an extent in terms of what we can bring from a photography perspective. So we're not calling it a day saying that, okay, this is all we can do, but constantly trying to improve each and everything that we do, even after the launch of a smartphone. I think that's where we stand out from the rest. And we have so many folks who are passionate. Even Anuj himself is now, I think, getting more and more.
I'm learning. It's
but he's getting more and more into that.
This Leica camera is Anuj.
So
very expensive hobby, but
yeah. but that's the level of detail that we like to go into, right? Taking inspiration and then figuring out what is the next best thing that we can offer as value addition to consumers. I think that's very crucial. And it's a very different approach. And I think now people are trying to emulate it. I think one thing we were very clear on is that this is not just a marketing partnership, right? It's a co-engineering effort.
That's what, because even the tweet Anuj said co-engineered by
yes.
Leica.
It's
So
very different actually.
So
over the years, I've seen multiple collaborations.
Yes, Hasselblad, we had that we was doing with Zeiss and all those things. Yeah.
So a lot of collaborations unfortunately end up being a brand licensing deal.
Okay.
Right. So you are allowed to use my brand for a certain fee.
Okay.
Then you go certain distance beyond it and start doing some amount of camera tuning help.
Correct.
Okay.
So that becomes a little better.
So they help you in color science.
Color science and all of that stuff, right? So we continue to see that in some of the phones out there. Then you take that and you add a bit more to it. Like, for example, you are allowed to use the sound of the camera. You are allowed to use... So there becomes a little more experience there. But then we thought... the whole idea of doing this partnership is actually to extend what photography in general should be. So if you talk to the Leica guys, they are super excited about miniaturization of photography.
Okay.
So we last year met up with the godfather of lenses, a guy called
Leica
Peter
is known
Garber.
for their lenses, and their lenses are like
Correct.
cost a bomb.
Correct.
So the guy who makes the M series lenses, right? He's the one who designs this. He's been doing it for like some 50 years.
Yeah, 43 years.
When we asked him what does he want, what's he looking forward to, he's saying, how do I fit all of this into like a 2 mm, 3 mm kind of a width?
Correct.
Okay.
Right?
Correct.
So they're genuinely excited from there. So that's where the co-engineering part comes in.
Okay.
So while yes, we are obviously allowed to use the Leica brand. We in certain countries our phones are selling in their stores as well. We have camera tuning partnership with them. We have the Leica watermark, the camera sound, but there's a lot of R&D that goes into this.
Okay.
So that co-engineering is the engineering R&D that we are doing for each generation. So you saw a few things that came with the 13 Pro. For example, 13 Pro was the first one with that floating tele lens.
Yes.
Correct.
Right? Nobody had that. So we got that with the 75 lens. With the Ultra, now you see even more, co-engineered output that's coming in from R&D, technology, hardware, software, all of that together. And this is just the start. So this year we've set up Optical Institute. So it's basically Leica plus Xiaomi in I think 2 or 3 countries now.
Yeah.
Where the engineers are working together. So the engineers from Leica, engineers from Xiaomi, we're just working on what could be the future of photography. So it's not what we'll put in the next phone.
So can I say this? This lenses, whatever, are actually made with help of Leica engineers or something like that.
Correct.
So to a point, and honestly, I don't think we as Xiaomi know as much about photography as Leica does.
Okay.
In fact, I don't think there is any smartphone brand that knows as much as these guys, because these guys are the pioneers of compact
And
cameras.
in the flagship level, Leica holds that.
So they are part of every aspect. So in this one, you've got the Sony LYT 900. Selection of that sensor and the testing of that sensor before we even put it into the phone is together. Right?
Yeah.
So it has to be passed by both the teams.
Okay.
The lenses are from Leica.
Oh, actually, this is a misconception. Actual lens is Leica.
As in it's a technology that we develop together and we do it, which is quite a bit different from everyone else, where they actually just have a device and then say, okay, now what can you add on top of it?
Because this is something people don't understand, Sandeep. That lens is such an important thing before the sensor.
Yes.
Because you can have refractions, those flares, and all those things, imperfections. You might have the best sensor in the world.
Correct.
But if the lens that is seeing that also has to have great. Because I've seen that, I won't name the devices or whatever. Some devices at night have some beautiful lens flare that makes them unusable, right?
No, I think you nailed it, because Anuj and I were just discussing this, right? And I think he had an interesting way to think about it. The output of your camera is as good as your weakest portion.
Yes, obviously. In the
So,
link.
like, obviously, when you're doing a DSLR or mirrorless camera and you're comparing the results from a very high-end lens versus a very cheap lens, then you see that difference in quality. No other parameter is changing. The sensor is the same, the processing is the same, but just that lens creates a huge difference. So similarly, if the light that you take in, the purity of light is quite low, or it's impure light, then no matter how good your sensor or the other components are, you're left with bad output of sorts.
Because there was a misconception, and quite a few people, even on Twitter, asked me, this Leica, it's just a filter. What do you say?
So that was a thing that came in later on and as part of the software tuning. But once all of this is together as well, right? So each product, we cannot use the Leica name till the Leica team and their guys have approved it, saying it is this level or not.
Correct.
Okay.
So to be able to reach a Leica level and to be able to say that, okay, this is a Leica co-engineered device, it has to meet a certain standard.
Okay.
To meet that certain standard, like what Sandeep was saying, that you need the right parts, you need the right lenses, you need all of that aspect coming together, which has not been cheap so far.
Obviously, I can understand. It's just not a label. You have to pay licensing. Plus, again, even the lenses, etc., are made by. So even apart from this, the hardware part, even in the software, are these guys helping you?
Yeah.
Software optimization.
See, I think that
because I feel one brand to another brand, I would say ISP and the after image processing makes a huge difference.
Correct. So that signature Leica look, I would say that they've sort of heroed over the past 100 years. And Anuj also briefly touched upon the point of miniaturization, right? So the first 35 film camera, or what we now call as full frame on a digital format, was made by Leica in 1924 commercially, so 100 years ago.
So till 1924, if you had to take a photograph, you had to have that big camera with stands, and you put that curtain behind you. The person can't move.
Glass plates, and it was
Glass
like
plates.
4 to 5 minute exposure, so we all had to stand still.
Statues.
So that's why if you see those old photographs of 1901, everyone's just standing. Like the woman will be sitting, this guy will be standing, and everyone's stiff.
And street photography was born only after that, because
Street photography couldn't happen.
because it was a huge sensor. It was a large format camera. It's a huge sensor, which meant they had to step it down. But the moment they step it down, the problem is then you need a longer exposure. So by actually miniaturizing and going for a smaller sensor, you could do a faster shutter speed. So essentially, this is the next stage of miniaturization, which is why, like Anuj mentioned, Peter Carber, who's considered as the god of lens making, is now saying this is the next big thing. So the next step of miniaturization is here in smartphones.
Interesting.
Yeah.
One more thing I noticed is that at least on this one, yes, we know the main sensor is that 1-inch Sony sensor. But to be very frank with both of you guys, I've taken most of the photographs with the 3.2x zoom lens without even the portrait mode or whatever. And the results that I'm getting are so good. Though this was not hyped. The main 1-inch sensor was hyped like crazy.
No, I think each and every lens and focal length has a reason for existence, and 3.2x, I think we all gravitate towards that because I believe we all like to take photos of our friends and family. And anywhere between a 50 and a 75, which 75 is a 3.2, is the ideal way in which you would actually represent someone's face without distortion, right? If you go wide, such as 14 and all, you'll see distortion. If you go beyond that, say 85 or beyond that, there's a pin cushion effect that happens. So your face looks really thin, and very wide, it becomes very bloated.
Maybe is that the reason in the 5x default you guys haven't
correct
given the portrait mode?
Yeah, because beyond that it looks a bit unnatural, and if that is the case, then why have a portrait mode just for the sake of doing it, right?
Okay, makes sense. And I don't recall, even the Xiaomi 14 has that 75mm.
Yes, it does. And the floating telephoto lens, which allows you to focus as close as 10 centimeter and
that is what I liked. Even with the 3.2x, I was taking very close-up shots, and they were coming at actually very good. I was not using the macro a lot. I was using that.
So that becomes a macro. So it has two group of lens elements. 3P element.
Just talk about this, because we always say that even when we are doing that floating lens and what is this exactly? Because what is this?
So it's a 6P lens, basically 6 elements in two groups of 3 plus 3. What happens is one group of elements is moving so as to allow it to focus closer, right? And the challenge is the fact that because this is constrained in terms of the thickness, compared to a regular camera lens, which can actually protrude outside if needed, how do you do it within that? So that's why this is called a floating telephoto lens. It recognizes the scene and understands it has to go for a macro shot, and it'll move that electronically and get that overall output that you want from a macro perspective.
That
so
focus that is required.
Yeah, the super macro.
So like if you use a DSLR, then you actually move the lens, but you don't have that space. So this was actually, made by that co-engineering team. Saying how do we solve for something like this?
Correct.
Which is quite unique, and I think almost everyone I know has loved it.
Yeah.
I am like you. I am in the team 75mm, 50mm.
So I've even used the 5x, the major zoom, but that's when just zooming in. And I think so because of all this camera hump is because of that.
Yeah, I mean, there's quite a lot of tech, and obviously in the case of Ultra, there's also the stepless variable aperture.
Yes,
which is
that is actually that I saw in some smartphones way long back, but it was abandoned. So why is it difficult, expensive to implement? Because I appreciate it, that control. Not a lot of people who work with camera can appreciate it, but somebody who's like, sometimes we have to do manual stuff and all these things. Controlling the stepless aperture.
So I think earlier there was one phone which had only 2 steps.
Yes, correct, 2 steps.
So either this or that.
Yes.
Right? So you couldn't have that complete control. Here, again, one of the ideas was that the Ultra is built for professionals, right? People who sometimes we'll spend almost like some 15-20 minutes getting that perfect shot.
Yeah.
Right?
That manual mode really makes a difference on this.
Correct. So people who know, and that's why you don't see this on the 14, right? Because 14 is for a different set of audience. That's more point and shoot.
Okay.
Ultra is like, I've seen people in the team as well, spending almost 10 minutes trying to capture this one dried flower, right? Because they want to get that perfect. They want to get that shallow depth of field, or if they want to capture something at the back. So that's why Ultra has all of those aspects. But yes, the other elements make it.
Correct. And in the past, the sensor size was much smaller.
Yes.
So the effect of a variable aperture or a dual aperture, which is what that particular phone called, was not very apparent. Only beyond a certain limit you will actually,
maybe
because
that's why abandoned in the industry.
When it is very small, you're anyway having an extended depth of field. It's not as shallow as what you get on this, for example, where you can play around with the depth or even get things such as a Sunstar, right? Which is
the Sunstar
really
thing. Yes, I've seen some photographs. That effect. So okay. One question I had, and this is again coming. This is almost $1 lakh. Right, this is your top end smartphone. Last year you came with the Leica collaboration for the 13 Pro.
Correct.
That was around 80,000 or something
80,
like that. Now we have even the Xiaomi 14, which is about almost 70,000, I could say.
70, yeah.
And I think so, once a person has used a Leica camera like this, he'll appreciate that photo. That's the reason I purchased it, because I got that taste of that in the 13 Pro. But I feel because this is the strength that you have, this is slightly different what you're doing from other manufacturers in terms of the actual photograph that you get. Let's forget about the processing. The actual photograph that you get is very different, and that gets that natural feel. I feel you guys should bring this technology. I don't know because how feasible. I can understand because of the logistics, the Leica partnership, the royalties, or you have to work with them. But can this be brought? I think so. If this can be brought to some lower segments, I feel there is a differentiator, because we have a lot of smartphones in every price range. What is the differentiator?
Correct.
Is it possible also? Because as I would like you to have it in different range of smartphones, obviously, because people will appreciate it, and that I think so is a differentiator right now.
So we've actually, we understand the market quite a bit, and I understand what you are trying to also say. That, when we were planning on the Xiaomi 14 and the 14 Ultra, or even the last year's Xiaomi 13 Pro, at 70,000 plus, it's a small segment of the market. So there are not too many people who are buying that. Like, people who you see with 70,000-80,000 rupee phones normally have bought that phone at 45 or 46,000 in the Flipkart Big Billion days. So we understand that market, and we've been actually working with the product team for the last 2 years, saying that can we do this at say around 50,000 rupee mark?
Okay.
Right? So from a laddering perspective, coming from 70 to 50, 50 becomes a very psychological price point, where these days actually it's almost being seen as a mid-range. I disagree, it's not mid-range.
Value flagship. Was a term,
which is it's a diluted sort of.
It's a diluted flagship right now. But 50K is an important price point.
Yes, it is.
Since the Leica partnership, actually more than 2.5 years, actually almost 3 years now. The answer that we've had is that not possible.
I can understand because yes.
But last year when we were talking to the Leica team and the folks in Germany as well, they said we think we have something.
Okay.
Right. So we think we can finally give that Leica quality. I mean, they didn't really give us a 50K price point and all that, but we said we can probably give you that
in
quality,
those segments
but below where the Xiaomi 14 lies. So we are actually working hard towards trying to get that done.
Okay.
We think the adoption of like a better camera technology can kind of skyrocket if we are able to do this. So working hard there.
Correct. Yeah.
So maybe this question maybe Anuj can answer, because even the Xiaomi 14, I would say as of now in India is targeting that camera centric users. So is there a decent percentage of users, or like maybe enthusiasts like me, that 1% or 2% of the market is just
So I've been thinking a lot on this part, right? And over the last 3-4 years, so earlier on, if you remember, say 10 years ago, all that mattered was which new processor you got,
Yeah.
right? In 2016-17, suddenly you started getting 4 GB of RAM, so that became a big thing. 4 GB, 6 GB RAM. About 3-4 years ago, that performance shift from one generation to the other actually has gone down significantly. You can't tell.
Yes.
You can't really tell too much of a difference.
Yeah, Snapdragon Gen 8 Gen 2, 8 Gen 3.
Yeah.
Hardly. I would
Even if
say.
you take if I take the other silicon, right? So
Yeah.
if you go from A15 to A16, it doesn't really make too much of a difference. In my head, I think once you cross the equivalent of like a 1 million on Antutu, right?
More or less,
more
yeah,
people-
95% of the
You can't tell, right? Unless you are doing a benchmark. Only then you'll
benchmark
be able
or
to.
video editing on the phone or
Correct.
something.
Yeah.
So that went away. Then there were some improvements in the screen tech. So it moved from 16:9 to 18:9,
Yeah, the screens increase.
close
yeah,
to about
yeah.
20:9.
Yeah.
That went very rapidly till about 2020, 2021.
Hmm.
But now, if you talk to a lot of people, why they are buying a new device or why they're buying this new flagship device at 1.5 lakhs or 1.6 lakhs, mostly it is that they want to try out what the camera brings in. So the importance of the camera is actually very, very high now.
So you're telling me after a certain segment, let's say 50K or whatever, camera is the biggest focus among users.
Correct.
That's
Because the expectation is that the rest of the phone will do everything that I want.
Okay.
Right? I don't think we are left for battery life. Most
Okay.
phones actually do a decent job. Charging, okay, actually most of the brands don't give charger in the box. But
No, that is something you guys did wrong. You're calling this a flagship.
but we
Then
didn't,
you're giving a charger, man. That's why it's not a flagship.
we should have taken it out.
Okay, we don't just kidding.
Yeah. See, I mean, I've always had this debate. I always get overruled. I had this theory back in 2015-16 as well. I remember somebody asking me saying, "Why have you not put headphones in the box?" And I said, "People don't value anything inside the box."
Okay.
So if I take, for example, the charger that you get with the Ultra or even the 14 or some of the lower devices as well, that itself is some 2,000-3,000 rupees worth.
Okay.
Right? If you have to buy it separately.
Correct.
But then people discount all of that and compare phone to phone only. But from a salesperson, right, or if I take the sales hat, then I would say I should remove the charger,
Okay.
right? Because I want to make maximum money. But then when I wear my product hat, I'm saying I have to give the best product experience.
Yeah, otherwise you won't get the charging experience or whatever with the third-party charger.
Yeah.
So then I cannot remove the charger because I was like, okay, this is built. There's a lot of technology that goes into the phone where it can charge fast, safely. But if you don't give a fast charger, people will not get to experience it. So all that effort that we put on the phone is wasted.
Okay.
So unfortunately or fortunately, depends on how you see it. Not too good for the business, but good for the
No, I think
product
so.
and the consumer.
Correct.
We've
No,
kept
it's
it.
actually good because I was testing some chargers and even the cables recently. I'm going to put out that video. One funny thing I noticed is that even if you don't put a proper cable, the charging speeds drastically reduce with even a generic, let's say, PD charger that supports 100 watts.
Correct. Yeah.
That's going to be a very interesting video I'm actually producing. So that cable mismatch also creates a havoc, actually.
Yes.
Forget the charger.
It does.
Yes.
So it's complicated, right? One is finding the right charger. What we also realized is like some brands who've removed the charger from the low priced phones also.
Yeah.
Now, when somebody is buying a phone for 10,000-15,000 rupees,
Yes.
they're trying to save money, so they'll go buy a generic charger.
Yeah.
And that can actually be dangerous,
Correct.
right? I mean, we've heard so many
No,
instances of...
that I don't like. The below 20K also you're removing charges. That's criminal.
So, there's another risk to it. I mean, again, from a sales perspective, it is easy. It's more profitable for the company. We can understand all of that stuff. But from a consumer experience and, the charging safety and all of that, unfortunately, that turns out to be off.
Okay, one thing I wanted to ask you, I'm just going a couple of years back. I used to see that in India, specifically in India, below 20K was the bread and butter. I would say. Anything above that, okay, iPhone or something only people will used to buy. Has this changed? Because now we are seeing a lot of even, I would say, mid-range phones crossing 25, coming to 30K or whatever. So because you guys have the actual analytical data and whatever sales data, has the Indian audience segment
Yes.
actually changed?
It has moved. I think the pandemic changed all of us, including all the consumers as well. So one is the upgrade cycle has gone down. So
Okay.
earlier people used to change their phones in less than a year, right?
Okay.
Or they were buying a new phone every year.
Too many launches were there. I agree.
Even now, actually, in some cases there are too many launches, but
I think so. Users also gotten bored of so many launches.
but
now.
that time, right, you could actually tell the difference, saying, okay, I have a 3 GB phone, and suddenly there's a 4 GB or a 6 GB phone that's come in.
Used to make it.
So there used to
tangible
be
difference.
that difference because your current phone was left wanting. After the pandemic, I think I know that people have significantly lengthened their upgrade cycle.
Okay.
So on average, now it's close to about 2.5, 3 years.
So they're holding it for 2.5
Much longer,
years.
yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. So
Okay.
it's gone up significantly. So with that, they're saying that, okay, instead of, for example, I was buying a 15,000 rupee device every year, and including the resale value, my outlay was still 30,000 in 3 years, right?
Yeah, indirectly, yeah.
So I bought it 15,
Yeah.
sold it at some
Whatever.
7, 8, bought another one. So now people are like, let me buy a 30, 35, 40,000 rupee device itself.
Okay.
So a lot of people who were buying 15, 16,000 rupee phone back in 2018, 19 are easily buying a 40, 50,000 rupee phone today. And people who were buying a 25, 30, which at that time we used to call flagships, have actually gone beyond.
Okay.
And it's just, all of us, Indians, have an inbuilt Excel sheet. We do that math and we decide that, okay, how do we see that value? And if the outlay is still the same,
Okay.
but it's just slower upgrades.
Oh, okay. That's interesting. Now, coming to some of the things that I have encountered with this, specifically Ultra, I would say. One thing, I don't know, this is again not just for Ultra. And in fact, I was just reading some user questions also. HyperOS now, all the new devices are coming with HyperOS. You guys have removed the screen on time, man. And we have to install some third-party app just to get the SOT. Why?
Okay, so I think the actual reason and what we were also discussing was the fact that, at that point of time when we had the screen on time, most of the others had gone into a different method of measurement, which sort of put us in a bad light.
Okay.
So we were giving the actual metrics but the others were measuring in such a way that in 24 hours or whatever,
iPhone.
which sort of inflated the actual numbers.
Okay.
And hence people are then comparing that inflated number versus our actual number, which made it look like we are worse off.
Okay.
But it wasn't actually the case. So even now you can actually go to digital well-being and figure out.
But digital well-being, Sandeep, that
Yeah.
particular day, it's
Sure,
only for that particular day. Next
Yeah.
day, because many of the smartphones last for more than a day. So for that, I don't trust the digital. Then again, you have to do add this, that. Okay, did I charge?
Agreed. So I think we have sort of gotten this feedback and
Maybe,
Yeah.
I mean, we are.
Or make a hidden setting for advanced users, like not something.
yeah.
No, I think only the developer options is hidden.
Yeah.
Everything else is okay.
Yeah.
Maybe, see, on the other side, HyperOS is quite a bold step that we are trying to take. Nobody in the industry has done an operating system that goes from your phone to your tablet to your car.
Yeah.
Right?
Which is crazy.
And all works together. I mean, we don't have the car in India yet, hopefully.
That is interesting. Yet.
But for all of it to work together, obviously there's fundamental architectural shift that has happened.
Okay.
So, and there are two aspects to it, right? One, the architecture is completely changed so that it all works flawlessly. And then there is the UI element which we've kept kind of familiar.
Okay.
And we can talk about that a bit more. But with all of these changes, these are things that probably we can bring in 2-3 versions. So we'll have a chat with the HyperOS.
Because I'm pretty
development
sure
team.
even if you ask your community people, they will say, yeah, this was a great feature for people who want to.
No, I think noted on that, the feedback, even I would say take the case of the Redmi Note 13 Pro Plus. which after the HyperOS update, there's been a significant improvement. So things are only getting better.
I
into
would
the-
say even some of your older phones, the UI has become a little bit more fluid
Yes.
with HyperOS.
So it is improving from even where we launched off, whereas most of the others that we have seen, the performance or the overall experience is sort of degrading as time progresses. But here we are seeing an upward improvement. Even in fact, your storage gets more free after HyperOS because it's more efficient on your.
It's a lighter storage.
Yeah, it's a lighter OS as well. So.
Okay. One more pet peeve I have. This is personal pet peeve that I have because this is Ultra. This is your flagship, almost a lakh thing. I understand. Yes, it's basically HyperOS, so you will have those Gets app and even the themes and all this thing. But they by default they keep sending notifications. Yes, it took me 2 minutes to disable it. So I would say maybe why not have a toned down version for some of the premium end phones or something, so that you give. Or maybe I'll just go ahead and say, why not have an Android 1 version or something like that for these devices? Maybe yes. It's like, because the hardware, you guys have put top-notch hardware, and I can understand from a tech point of view the cost that comes for this hardware. It's significantly higher than a lot of other devices. So maybe a stock, because people love that. There is a category of users who like that stock pure Android experience.
It's the same category of users who like mini phones. Small.
I think you say that's a very small market.
It's a very small
Very
one,
small.
but chances are that if it is missing too many features, they also don't like it.
Yeah.
Okay.
They will never agree to it. But when we do in-depth, consumer studies, where you sit with a particular set of consumers for hours and hours and try and dissect how they use it, they also end up adding a lot. So, for example, if you have a stock Android device,
No, have that Leica, all that software I'm doing, because that's the thing, right?
So in this case also, if you see with the HyperOS on the 14 Ultra, apart from system apps, it hardly had any other apps to it. So we
Correct.
did kind of have a very clean version for the flagship.
Yes.
So we obviously understand that someone who's coming into this particular phone will know what to download, what not to download. It's not their first phone.
Obviously.
So there is a laddering to it.
Okay.
On the 14, you would have seen lesser than obviously the low-end devices. 14 Ultra is even less. So we are taking that into consideration. Notifications, I don't know if I say noted.
No,
so
yeah.
we are working towards it. There are a
So-
lot of changes that we also understand.
Because I understand this is just the first version of HyperOS.
Yes.
Yeah.
Obviously,
yes.
you'll have further improvements.
I think from a app perspective, like Anuj said, it is very clean, very minimal. And for some reason, there are others out there with a whole bunch of apps, but somehow does not get called out.
Okay.
I'm not sure
No,
why.
I think it's the
Yeah.
Xiaomi users are generally more tech oriented.
Yeah, that's also
And
that. Yes.
the entire Xiaomi community was built on debate
Correct.
on
correct.
this.
Feedback. yeah.
Feedback, debate, a very, very vocal kind of community. So that's why we end up hearing a lot more about Xiaomi,
And we also take action basis that also.
and we
It's
end
the
up
other way,
doing
yeah.
something.
Yeah.
So, people only will speak out if they think that something will come in.
Come
so
in, yeah.
we normally
Yeah.
take feedback from that angle, saying
Okay.
the worst thing that can happen is if people have no feedback for a brand, right?
Right.
Nobody's perfect.
Means nobody's interested.
Nobody's interested.
correct.
Nobody cares.
Yeah.
Or the brand, wherever you give feedback, doesn't listen. at all.
Doesn't do anything. Yeah.
But
yeah.
also, it depends on how you take that feedback. So some people will see
Here
that
I
feedback.
have a debate. Like I can say, some brands are like, okay, they will defend you till no. There are like, let's forget about it. Let's not even go there.
So maybe it's also that when you are on Twitter and you say, okay, for Xiaomi there are like 5 people saying that this could be better, this could be better, but for another brand there's nobody who's saying anything.
Okay.
Does not mean that that device is actually better. That basically means that people don't really care or know that they can't influence. So I see it from that angle, which I think is good for us.
Okay.
Unfortunately, I think some people end up reading it as, everything is bad.
Yeah.
Okay.
Right? It's not the case there.
Yeah, but HyperOS, like I think again the idea that we were talking about is to bring the goodness of HyperOS as well as the cameras, everything into that other segment. That's something that we are definitely looking at. Yeah.
Okay, one question I got, and this is from a user. He's telling now you guys are like concentrating on this camera, Leica, and all those things. Yes, of course, this is going to be the higher segment. Will you guys be ignoring your Note series? Because I recall your Note series also, you guys are pushing the camera aspect of it.
Yeah. So Note actually is continuing to be the best all-rounder that you can get.
Okay.
What's happened is because you have to give so many new things to the Note, the price actually has gone up, right? So now you get a Note Pro Plus at close to about 30,000. For a lot of people who were used to the Note being 13,999 or 14,999,
That age has gone because
that has gone. Right?
Inflation, I understand, and everything.
So, but there's another segment of the Note users who want something new. Like this year, last year we brought in the 200 MP camera, but it wasn't just the 200 MP camera, but it had to process faster as well.
Yes, the shutter lag was
correct. So it had to kind of take those photographs. This year we've gone beyond and said, okay, in this segment, what else do people want? If I'm spending 30,000 and I'm using this phone for 3 years, then the build quality has to be top notch.
Okay.
Right. So there's IP68 in it. There's Corning Gorilla Glass Victus in it.
That was you in that segment.
Yeah.
The Victus was never there in that.
Correct.
So trying to do those things to keep it, exciting for the folks. Otherwise, if we just stick to a price point, right, from a specifications perspective, from what it's bringing, and is it actually like a real Note?
Okay.
That will disappear slowly. So with the Note, it'll always be an all-rounder.
Mm-hmm.
I think we end up talking a lot about the camera, especially during the launches, because Sandeep goes on and then he can't stop himself. But there are, so Note will always stay as the mainstay. In fact, quite happy that, last year's Note, the Note 12, 12 Pro, 12 Pro Plus got a good acceptance.
Okay.
But the 13 Pro, 13 Pro Plus is actually outselling the 12 Pro, even at a slightly higher price.
Oh.
Yeah.
Because people are valuing those add-ons.
Okay.
Saying, if we add this, you can't add something for no cost.
Obviously.
Right? It's impossible. Like, if you have to do IP68, if it was free, then everyone would be doing it.
Yeah.
So we're adding all of that, but people are actually liking it. And at least in retail, so now that our retail network is also fairly good, anyone who's coming in to see the Note Pro Plus, so you've got that vegan leather edition, there's a massive hit rate there. Like, people who hold it in their hand once, they're walking away with it.
Correct.
After paying.
No, this brings me to one point, because now you guys are selling, of course, online it's there.
Yeah.
And even offline, is there a price difference? Because I haven't, it's the same price.
It's the same price.
Okay.
So obviously you've got the convenience of online. If I have to buy something in Bangalore, no way I'm driving to any place.
I generally buy everything online, so because that's
there.
But there is a segment of users, for example, for a smartphone like this, having online presence makes a lot more sense. Because how much you talk or see online, unless you have experienced it.
Correct. So you have to pick it up once, right?
Yeah.
And there are a lot of people, for example, if I'm asking you, and to be very honest, we've never had a 1 lakh rupee phone.
Yes.
Yeah.
With Xiaomi.
First time.
If I'm asking you, saying that, okay, this is a great phone and you should try it out, you would, before spending that 1 lakh rupees.
I just had that confidence because I had used the 13
13
Pro.
Correct. So
and I saw the photographs, and I'm getting old now. So I want to have the... That's a fact. Yeah, that's a fact. And I'm traveling a lot. So, and to be very frank, I have DSLRs and all those things.
Yeah.
But to be very frank, I notice I never carry those DSLRs or even my pocket camera with me when I'm traveling.
It's convenience, basically.
So I want a device that I have in my pocket and to capture that memories in the best, without looking too much artificial.
Correct.
That's the whole reason I got this.
Yeah.
Simple.
So people want to try it out, and that's where the offline part is becoming bigger and more important for us. So our Mi Homes, I think there used to be one close to your old house.
Yeah.
There. So there we try and have.
So now in most of the big retail stores, you have a physical presence of these devices.
Yes.
Correct.
Yes.
Okay.
Mostly. And we try and have demo units up as soon as possible.
Okay.
So that people can pick it up, try it out.
Yeah.
Before obviously you're committing money, right?
And I think for the 14 series especially, that pickup test, and once they try the camera, it's an instant sort of thing. They would love it. Yeah.
You have to use the camera and see why it's different.
Correct.
Unless you have used it.
Yeah. Otherwise, you'll not be able to tell.
Yeah.
Even in the portrait mode, I was just showing some photographs to Sandeep. Some photographs I took regular mode, plus I enabled the Leica mode.
Yeah.
This is the color difference and something that looked very different because different lighting.
Yeah.
The regular photograph was little different, but in the portrait mode where we had that Leica thing, it made the photograph look pleasing.
Actually, the portrait mode, the main turning point for most people will be not when you are seeing portrait shots, right? So we can share thousands of samples,
Right.
but when you take a photograph of somebody that you know, right, your friend or
Correct.
you know, your family members, wife, girlfriend, and when you see that it becomes a turning point. So that's also important. You try it out for yourself.
Right. And anyone who has this will also get that validation. It's like how in the past, anyone with a DSLR would automatically become the group's favorite person, saying, click my photo,
like,
please.
Please get your phone for the photograph.
So now this becomes an ask also. Bring your phone, please.
I was just checking. So you've got the new AI editor on the phone.
AI. Yeah, because this is something I wanted to ask. AI. So what? Because I haven't seen. Yes, there is some in the gallery, some AI thing.
Yeah.
So you guys are going to add some more AI stuff?
It's a continuous process.
Okay.
So we will add a few more. Right now for the Ultra, the beta for AI portrait has started.
Yeah.
Okay.
So where you have to upload, I think 25 photographs
25 to 35 photos.
of one particular subject.
Okay.
And then from there it uses that as a learning model to then start creating generative images.
Yeah. In fact, I had just posted that thread a few days back. I don't know if you saw that.
Oh, I didn't see that.
So you create an avatar of yourself, and you can have multiple profiles, and you can then give in prompts, or it can also randomly generate.
Okay.
And then the results are quite shocking. In fact, once you see it, you should also try it. So on the 14 Ultra, this is available. It's a public open beta, so anyone can try it. And the results are absolutely wonderful. And I think some of the finer things like the texture and even the fingers, which generally tends to go wrong in some of the other AI things, we're getting it quite right. And the best part I feel is the lack of a learning curve for this. It's there in your gallery editor. You don't need to actually go like whether it's Mid-Journey or anything else, which there's a lot of hoops that you have to jump through. A regular consumer might not understand or want to do that.
This I'll have to explore.
You should. But the challenge was what we were talking earlier, right? Because I'm the designated photographer for all the events and stuff like that. I couldn't find 25 photographs of myself in my gallery.
And you don't take selfies either.
I don't take selfies.
So. Okay, regarding selfies, this is one question that I had, and even some users who have actually purchased noticed this. You have that Leica optimization and all this thing for the rear cameras, but it's not for the front one.
You talk to the Germans, they don't do selfies.
They don't do selfies.
No, I'm sorry. So Leica team is not involved with the front camera.
Okay.
And because this is such a pro photographer's thing.
Okay.
We've not. So this time actually the selfie is slightly better than the
better
previous
than
generation.
The 13 Pro, yeah.
But it's not completely focused on the selfies part.
Okay.
Or at least our camera phones have not focused on the selfie part yet.
Okay.
We understand that gap. So we got some of those inputs towards the end of last year. It was too late to incorporate into this. The basic stuff saying, okay, needs more clearer, needs a little more dynamic range. But we started working on a couple of devices which can do better selfies.
Okay.
But that will not be Leica.
Okay, fine.
But I think the need and want to improve constantly, be it the front or back, that is there, and you will start seeing that when more phones as we go across. And even for this particular device, it's a big leap over what we had done in the past.
Because I noticed that even in the video, now the video quality has improved quite a bit. But I understand because these days, sometimes, whenever I do outdoor shoots or these cars or whatever, I never carry those big DSLRs because it's a headache. So I generally shoot with this one. So the rear facing camera is really good, but sometimes you have to also use your front facing camera for that video recording. So it does make a difference.
So that will continue to improve. And I think one thing when we are talking about a phone like an Ultra or a 14, even if you look at a mirrorless or DSLR camera, the higher end you go, it will be more focused on the subject and not yourself. But if you go for a lower end camera, such as a ZV-1 from Sony, that's when you have the flip screen.
Yes,
That's
easy.
when it's focused on the person who's capturing as well, because you're telling stories in a different way. But as you go higher up, it will be a fixed screen. You will have lesser flexibility from that versatility perspective.
Okay.
But yeah, so here also, if it's a different segment, then yeah, we'll see how we can proceed with that.
And regarding AI, I understand that you're putting it in the gallery and all these things. But apart from that, the AI implementations, now even the Google has started that circle to search even on the Pixel and all those things. I understand you can use Google Lens and do it and all those
Yeah,
things.
yeah.
But that's one more step. So how about these general other AI stuff coming to these devices? Or at least, I know it might come eventually to your mid-range devices also. But what about the flagships?
So, I mean, AI actually is a part of HyperOS. We've
Okay.
not rolled out all of the stuff, but
Okay.
the biggest play essentially was the Hypermind.
Okay.
So, Hypermind is when AI automatically connects all your Xiaomi devices
Okay.
and makes them work for you without you knowing or without you intervening.
Okay.
So, simple things, right? Learning your routine and saying when you're coming back home
Okay.
with the car, right? So at a particular distance, at a particular speed, 15 minutes before that, it can switch on certain devices for you.
Okay.
So that's on the roadmap. We did talk about it during the HyperOS launch, but it's still in progress.
Yeah. Okay.
So we've not kind of gotten that in. But to be very honest, and this is stepping outside of the Xiaomi issues, the speed at which AI is changing.
Yes, I was just Chat GTP the 4.0. Oh
Correct.
my
So-
God! I thought this will happen after 2 years.
Correct.
Yeah.
I saw that launch video, which was
Right.
on
This was crazy,
Monday
man.
evening, right?
Yeah.
That is my Jarvis.
Correct.
Yeah.
Have you used it though?
No, I didn't. But I saw that like, seriously, man.
Correct.
Now
I saw
we
that
have it.
demo
Yeah.
for a long time, and I have to use it for myself, and then I'll believe it.
Yeah.
I thought there's somebody else on the phone on the other side.
Yeah.
Actually,
yeah,
it's
yeah,
like
yeah. True.
It cannot be. So, and just a year back, right? You were not able to generate images properly.
Yeah.
So in 12 months, if things have changed so much, from between now and Diwali itself,
Correct.
things could be completely different. So we'll have to,
Yeah.
keep kind of seeing this.
Yeah.
Is it going to be important? Yes. Is it going to be in the shape that we see it today in some of the phones? Maybe not.
Yeah.
I feel the assistants that we have right now are pretty
Yeah.
limited.
Limited. Yeah.
Once this technology comes,
Correct.
I feel the assistant becomes a real assistant, like a personal assistant.
Correct.
You mean what I'm
Because
talking about, right?
I think so far, even initially when we were discussing about Hypermind and all the other AI features that we will slowly get on the phones, every single implementation that we have seen of AI so far has been only focused on creativity.
Yes.
Which is also great. However, that's limited. But I think when you come to efficiency or productivity, that's where we will see significant leaps, especially the assistant and stuff. I think that will be the way of the future, where it's not just creativity. Of course, that's more tangible, that's easily shareable, and people will see the benefit. But that you can personally benefit, not just others that you share, is coming from an efficiency perspective.
This
But
brings me
Personally, I'm not for AI in the camera.
to okay.
But that's my personal opinion.
Yeah.
Okay.
Obviously, we've got AI on the gallery app and things are rolling out now. But I want there to be a difference, and maybe now I'm also becoming too old. But I want there to be a difference between photograph and art. And so
Yes,
this
I
is-
agree
this is
because
created art.
you're manipulating so much. Is
That
this
is
the
not-
reality or not?
Yeah. So photograph has always been about your memory, and your recollection, and capturing that moment. If you manipulate that moment so much that it's no longer that thing,
Yeah.
then is it really a photograph? Or
Right.
is it something else altogether?
I think goes back to a topic of photo manipulation versus just fine tuning it. So I don't know. This is again my wishful thinking that AI can help us sort of circumvent the limitations of hardware. Not really augment anything, but rather saying that if you're shooting at night and you still want a decent enough photo and it can fill in for some of the shortcomings, that might be a better approach.
Is it still a photo though?
Yeah,
I don't know.
That's a valid question.
These days, to be very frank, people like that. They tell me to take samples at night, and they like a photograph that is totally
Super
unnatural.
yeah.
It's dark, but in the photograph, it looks so bright.
Bright,
They
yeah.
like it. Well, this is not what I took.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
For me, that is not a correct photograph. But people have different expectations.
Yeah.
I mean, my aim, actually, especially for night photography, is if my camera can capture what I am
I
seeing.
see. Yeah. Yeah.
Right?
Actually, true.
So there is,
They overblow it like 1000%.
and when we are seeing it, for example, you're seeing a small house, right? So you see some part of it, you see
Yeah.
some lights, but there's a sense of night.
Yes.
Correct.
Right? That has to remain, which unfortunately in most night modes, that
Yeah,
goes
yeah.
off.
But I think we've got that balance perfectly right, at least with the 14 series right now. Yeah.
Okay. Interesting. So let me just scan some interesting questions if the users have actually posted. But apart from that general question that I have, Anuj, do you think there'll be a differentiation in the future from one brand to another brand? Maybe this brand is doing XYZ in AI, that brand is doing XYZ in AI. Right now, for example, camera is a big focus between different brands. Will we see that in the next couple of years?
I would hope, but I would probably think no.
Okay. So you'll say that everybody will get those AI features because Google is going to eventually give it to everyone.
Right. So right now it's become a game of the large players.
Yeah.
And large players, all of them have enough resources to do everything.
Ah.
So if they miss out on a particular element that the other person has done, then 3 months or 4 months later, they'll also try and incorporate that. So
Okay.
at least for the next few years, I think it'll be more of like that generic AI across the board. Everyone's trying to do the same thing.
Okay.
Object recognition, some
Right.
amount of voice assistant
Yeah,
editing, things like that. But it might be interesting to see where it goes 3 years, 5 years later.
True.
Okay.
True.
One question I'm getting, and I got this from quite a few users, this is regarding the security updates. Because to be very frank, I just got one update on this device since I purchased it. I didn't get any. So, what is the update policy on your flagship phones or whatever? What is it?
So we will continue to have it every quarter.
It's quarter, okay.
Yeah.
So it's a quarterly basis. For the flagships, it's actually 4+5.
No, that I know, yeah.
So that we
4
will
OS upgrades,
maintain.
and, but generally other brands every 2 months or something they get that security update or whatever. So I was also curious. People asked me, did you get any more OT update? No, I just got one.
No, I think also the Ultra has been on sale for just a month.
Yeah.
It's not even been more than that. I think you got it on 14th April.
Yeah.
In just a month, basically.
just a
So
month.
I think that is too short for any brand.
Sometimes actually I think,
Yeah.
and we've also done this in the past where a particular device has gotten too many updates right after the launch.
Yeah.
That
Yes,
basically meant
they're
that
like-
you sent out a device
Yes.
that wasn't complete.
Makes sense.
That's probably mine. But from a update policy perspective and all that, I think recently also got a certification.
Yeah. AR certification is there. Yes.
So it's basically certified that it'll be supported till that point. And
Yeah.
everything.
So basically, the 14 and 14 Ultra, you'll get security patches all the way up until Feb 2029. So
Okay.
5 years. So that's certified and
Okay.
it's guaranteed there. Yeah.
One question I'm getting this is not just about this specific device, but general Xiaomi devices. What about the MIUI dialer? I get this almost every time. So,
So-
I don't know what's the answer for this.
It's tricky. Some places we've actually brought that in.
Okay.
Uh,
But there is a certain segment of users that want
it. Yeah. So we last year or last year we had a deep dive with some of the Xiaomi fans.
Last year.
And what they wanted was, so MIUI dialer ended up being very, very stable.
Mhm.
And they also had a detailed log
Okay.
of people that they've contacted
Yes.
over years and years. So they didn't want to lose that part of it. Cognizant of it, sometimes there are certain device restrictions where we cannot
Okay.
put that in.
Yeah.
One more question again. I think so you have answered, but I have to take this. Any plans to bring compact phones around the 6.1 inch?
No.
It does not sell.
No.
It does not.
Uh,
Okay.
let
So
me- let
you
me-
should answer this because I do get this question a lot from users. Why?
So
Most of the brands have abandoned it.
yeah, most of them actually, if I take it right, the brand with the biggest marketing budget
Yes.
and the marketing muscle couldn't make it work over 2 years.
Okay.
I think is a very, very clear statement that it doesn't really work. And I think it's fundamentally to do with what we do on our phones.
Okay.
So small phones are great if you were limiting it to phone calls
Yeah.
and or text message.
Okay.
But when you start consuming content, right, it becomes too small. So if you're watching a YouTube video, right, forget, I'm not even going into Netflix and all that because those
Right.
are built for slightly larger screens. Simple things like YouTube videos, or if you are on Instagram,
Right.
or you are, just scrolling on Twitter, that smaller screen is just not right for it. It's those small phones are like your netbooks.
Yes.
Yeah.
Right, the netbooks were 9.7 inch netbooks that used to
People
be there.
don't get that. The aspect ratio has changed.
Correct.
That's the big thing.
And how we use it has changed,
Yes.
right? For example, now, let's say 20 years ago, a 21-inch CRT TV used to be huge.
Yeah.
Now you put it in our homes, right?
Yeah. 21 doesn't cut.
Content has changed.
Okay.
Imagine
Yeah.
watching the Godzilla X Kong on a 21-inch CRT now.
Yeah.
Okay.
It'll not work.
Okay.
And from other problem that ends up happening is because of the physical limitation, your battery will have to be tiny.
Okay. Yeah.
So
And you say the market is very small. Actual market.
yeah,
Yeah.
very, very small.
Very, very small.
That,
And
I think so. That
maybe
was-
the same user would have asked you like a few years back also, and
Yeah.
they're just stuck in that entire thing. But
So I mean, if I look at it, right? So there's, apart from the minis, there's the SE, which is still a small phone.
yeah.
Yes.
Nobody talks about it.
Okay.
Yeah.
There is one more question, and I've got this even earlier also in my comments. Why the always-on display on Xiaomi phones is limited to only 10 seconds?
It's
No, you
not
can
limited.
switch it.
Always. It's
You can
Always
have
on
it
is there.
always
Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
Mine is always
By
on.
default, I think so. It's for 10.
No,
Ah,
it's
that's-
always on here. You can see it. So
Okay.
So
it's fine.
you,
Yeah.
I think you'll have to go into the settings.
You
and
just have to
Okay.
yeah,
choose
Okay.
So
off
there-
for a particular
Correct.
duration, or
never switch off types.
obviously it will impact your battery life. Even if it's a LTPO display,
Correct.
it still is using some
Yeah.
power.
Uh, this is a controversial question, and I think so. This is regarding 3.5mm headphone jack, and I think so. Most of them have removed. At least on flagships, we are not getting it, and I get it. Why you guys are not putting, but what is the reason users want to ask? Even in the Note series, you guys have removed it now.
So I think the base Note still has it.
Base has it.
Okay.
But yeah, I mean,
But do you think the most of the users have now switched to wireless?
Yes.
yes. So most of them have moved to a neckband or a TWS. I mean, you're getting a TWS starting at 999
Yeah.
versus, yes, the headphones could have been a little cheaper, but then people are preferring more of that
Okay.
connected devices.
Yeah.
So the usage of the 3.5mm jack had dipped significantly
Okay.
in certain. So
And I think so. It makes the IP certification also a little bit trickier, maybe.
It's
Can-
okay.
And it takes.
That
I
can
think so
still
it takes a
happen.
lot of space inside.
it
Space-
does.
space,
It does
yes, yes.
So it's mostly that. If you put it at the bottom, then you'll have to design your battery and charging around
Correct.
it. But the usage itself has gone down. So then if
Yeah.
it's not being used too much, then our question is that instead of this, can we put something else which will be used more?
Okay.
So that's always the question.
I think so. You guys recently solved this, but this one user is asking about gesture navigations with third-party launchers. Earlier, it used to restrict the gestures if you install third-party launchers.
Not aware. Need to check. I think with
I-
HyperOS,
I think it's still under progress.
yeah.
Okay. I've heard like it might be like fixed or something.
No, so we're still working on it.
Okay.
It's not completely fixed, unfortunately. But I don't know. The HyperOS gestures we've improved a bit. The fluidity has gone up. But for example, I think earlier on I used to use Nova launcher.
Yeah. No launcher.
Okay.
So Nova launcher with gestures is still not as fluid
Okay.
as we would
I
want.
think this is also again going back to the entire thing of that small phone size. The number of people actually using it is just coming on. In fact, 3.5mm headphone jack, small phone, the third-party launcher. I think barely, a very small segment is only using it. Hardly
Okay.
any people are actually actively using it.
But this was to do with actually, I mean, if all of these people have been using the third-party launchers, they would realize that there's a particular Android version which broke it for a lot of brands altogether suddenly.
Okay.
So it wasn't really brands doing something. It was just the change in the way Android worked, which moved it slightly off. So it's a little tougher right now than it used to be back in 2018, 2019.
Okay.
We'll see.
And this is something that even I spoke to you, Sandeep. Some users are asking about the battery life and heating on the Xiaomi 14 Ultra. I personally didn't have it. I have been posting about it, and I would say 70% of the users are not having. But there is a certain segment of users that might, for some reason, I don't know why they are getting that slightly less battery life. They're claiming about 5 hours. I'm able to get 8 hours. I've asked some; they are able to get it. So there is some difference. Is there some optimization left or a patch going to resolve that?
No, I think for most users it's fine. It's, I think, a very small set. I think the usual culprit is a third-party application which is probably
Okay.
hogging up all the resources and causing that drain, plus increasing the phone's temperature. But
Okay.
otherwise, for most people, I don't think there's an issue. In fact, we have also been using it, and it's perfectly fine. Of course, we'll always try to extract more and optimize it further. But as of now, yeah.
I mean, see, on one side, uh, yes, we are all concerned about thermals.
Yes.
But on the other side, the thermal concern should come in if you start seeing a degradation in terms of system performance.
I noticed that when I was just first setting up the phone, it became pretty hot. But after the first OT update that I got that night, and I slept after. From morning it was normal, and
Yeah.
I've been getting actually good SOT. So that first OT update, personally, at least for me, solved that issue.
And at least for the next 1.5 months, all phones in the entire country will run really hot. I mean,
Temperature.
simple
Yeah,
things,
yeah,
right?
yeah.
I remember the first time I got an Android phone back in 2010, and I wanted to use navigation. So I put on the navigation and I was driving, and suddenly the phone said, "Too hot, switching off." Right? And that was the first time I saw a phone do that. So I
Yeah.
thought I did something wrong.
Okay.
But it's also environmental conditions. If the outside temperature is 44
Yeah.
and you start from there and you start doing something else, obviously it will get to a particular point. But we have advanced cooling where it should not impact your system performance. So even if it's you're starting at 44 ambient temperature and it's going up to like a 48, 50 or something like that, the system will not throttle.
Okay.
Right, so it's taking heat away actively from the core components, so that you continue to do what you are doing.
Okay.
So we worked on that aspect, but yeah, thermal temperature, ambient temperature, all that matters.
This is one weird question. I don't know if Ashish is asking. Xiaomi air conditioner, is it coming to India? You have air conditioners?
So
I didn't know that.
air conditioners we do have.
Seriously.
From a smart ecosystem perspective, there are a lot of things that we do.
Okay.
Yeah.
But
So can you share something interesting if it's coming? Because accessories you have. I know that I have that vacuum cleaner long back. I
yeah,
had.
so vacuum cleaner is absolutely phenomenal. So we recently launched another vacuum cleaner with more suction power than before, because we realized that in Indian houses, it's a mix and match. In most Western houses, you've got either full carpet,
Yeah.
a thin
Yeah.
carpet that they lay, or this. Ours is that we'll put a carpet around the coffee table and then
Just,
forget the
yeah,
rest.
Yeah. Yeah.
So we're continuously working on that aspect of it. Then apart from this, we had the smart water purifier, air purifier.
Correct.
Air purifier, you guys were pushing
Yeah.
quite a bit.
Correct.
I understand
We
in
have
the
the-
Delhi region and
We
all
have the
that.
air fryer also. Smart.
We have an air fryer as well.
Yeah.
Okay.
Which probably is contributing to my weight. But air conditioners is a little more complicated. So one, we've not really done the testing for Indian environments. Right?
So, test it in summers only. If you want to test it.
No, so it has to be tested in summers in a coastal area, because with that humidity and high
Correct.
temperature, will it really do the
Job.
So we've not really designed a product for that yet. The second aspect of ACs is it's almost like setting up a separate service network,
Okay.
where, for example, you're mounting a AC in a high-rise building, right? The technician should know that on the 30th floor how to mount that AC.
Right.
Otherwise, it could become very, very dangerous very quickly.
Correct.
So that entire business requires a lot of focus. We've not gotten to it yet.
Okay.
But looking at Bangalore summers this year,
This year was exceptional, I would say.
I hope so. I hope it doesn't continue this way.
Yeah.
But this year was very weird. In some places, there
39.
are floods in the desert, and then Bangalore was like
Yeah.
scorching. So
Dubai.
we'll probably see.
This is a weird question. I don't know if I should ask it or this is a weird question. A user is asking, you have packed in so much of optics hardware on this one, and yes, the pricing is whatever that. And I won't say, he's telling if XYZ brand would have launched this device, easily it would have priced at one and a half lakhs or whatever. So are you guys actually making money, or this was just to showcase, bhai?
At Xiaomi, we don't make money.
That's a different-
Unfortunately.
Yeah.
So, this is actually, I'm not joking also. In 2018, when we first listed, so
Okay.
now Xiaomi is a listed company. There are 2-3 aspects to it. Because we are listed now, all our results are out.
Okay.
You can kind of go to the internet and see what our annual report, quarterly report has been. And unlike a lot of other brands, because we are a listed company, we can't just fluff on numbers saying ki we sold so much or we didn't. So, right? So everything has been vetted. But during the listing, our chairman actually went up and said that we will not or never make more than 5% on hardware.
Okay.
So
Yeah.
you can, with the case of the Ultra, everywhere else, the Ultra is selling
Because
for
not many people understand the amount of hardware that went inside this device.
Yeah. So first part is that nobody can do this, right?
It will
So
cost a lot.
No, it will not cost a lot.
No, they
Nobody
don't
can
have
do
to.
this.
Obviously, like
Yeah,
a
yeah.
partnership.
Yeah,
they
so
can't
like
do
a
that.
partnership, the R&D, nobody else can actually do this.
Yeah.
But if somebody was to do this, let's say a brand that sells phones at 1.6 lakhs, it would probably go much, much beyond that.
Pro, double pro, ultra.
Yeah.
So it is there, but that's how they do business, and there's nothing wrong with it, right? So there are certain companies that are built for profit, and they've used part of that profit to build a really strong brand, which is good. For us, Xiaomi is in the business of ensuring that we get the greatest technology in as many hands as possible. So
Okay.
we will always try and do that. So even though we are spending a lot in R&D and all of that, it's not that we can start kind of doubling our profits and all of that stuff. We still have to make enough money to plow back into R&D so that next year we can do even more.
That's why you have launched laptops and other segments also. You
Correct.
keep getting.
So we continue to focus.
Okay, this is one feedback from Mr. Rai, and he's telling, please kindly inform them. Updates are meant to bring in new features. Just updating security patches once in 3 months or even for a 9-month-old phone is not acceptable. Please regrow the community and do better things.
Okay.
So must be a loyal old-time user.
Fair enough.
That's actually an interesting thing also. Updates are meant to bring in new features. So if we had diluted our launch feature set and then just pushed
Add
it out
later.
as OTA, that would have worked then in that case. But ideally, I think that's not a Xiaomi way of approaching things. We want to give the best experience.
But I guess
Yeah.
what he's saying is that have something new
Yeah.
every time you update, something exciting to kind of add
Sure.
to it. I don't know at what level.
Yeah.
Like, is it some new cool wallpapers that come in, or
Maybe it's the security update thing. You guys need to be very clear about it for these series once in
No,
3
but
months.
he was
or
saying security update
Plus
plus
is not. Yeah.
features.
plus features?
Yeah.
So that could be an
Features, I
interesting
think
one.
so. Yeah, maybe
Let's
AI is going to evolve so fast now. I think so.
Yeah.
Yeah, we will.
And I don't know. You guys had launched some smartwatches, but some users, you guys are not bringing some of the premium smartwatches in India.
Yeah. So smartwatches. I mean, we're still kind of getting an idea of how
Okay.
the market is.
So do you think that price point, because I feel fitness watches that are just a pedometer are marketed as smartwatches in India.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So most of them are actually fitness bands.
Yeah.
So Mi Band that used to be really, really successful. In fact, this is actually a Mi Band, the new generation.
Wow, it looks like a watch.
It looks like a watch, but this is the Band 8 Pro.
Pro. Yeah.
Oh, nice.
Not launched in India, unfortunately.
Okay.
Because most people are saying that, okay, we don't want a band, we want a watch.
Mhm.
But that watch ends up doing less than what the band can do.
Yeah.
And then there's also been this entire flooding of the market where you can get a so-called smartwatch at 1,000, 1,200 rupees and all that, right? So it's a little tough.
So do you think like India, that's still that fitness band is the way to go?
So people are buying fitness bands in the shape of a watch.
Okay.
So till that changes, getting a really good watch, and I think the watches that we just launched at about 300 or 350 euros,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
It's
That's a very lean market in
again
India
that
right
very
now.
small
Yeah.
niche market.
I'm sure once people are done with this phase of really, really low cost watches, they will again start kind of going up.
Yeah.
It is, I mean, you are wearing one, I am wearing one. These are useful devices, but people will have to kind of start seeing what value they want and why they want it.
These help in your fitness stuff.
It is largely.
But that even your basic band will also get 90% of the stuff.
Yeah.
90%.
Pretty much.
Apart from very advanced stuff.
Yes.
Yeah.
So cool. Again, most of them are generic questions. You guys want to add something? Because I think so. I have taken up most of the core questions what people were asking.
Yeah.
So, okay, coming back to this point. So, hopefully, will we be seeing these Leica devices in the lower segment? That is the whole crux, right?
Yeah.
So we started the discussion.
We started with that discussion. Yeah, so it hasn't been easy, but I think we are very, very close to changing another segment. I don't know what we call the segment. I call it the lost segment.
Okay. Why? Like,
so lost segment because, if I take somewhere around 40 to 50,000 rupee device, right? Till about 2019, the flagships were at about 55 onwards or 65,
then
I
suddenly
think.
they started going crazy.
Flagships were 65 plus, and then all the action was 20 up to 20K. Now that mid segment has grown, and you've got devices up to about 35, 40, and but the flagships have gone up.
Yes, considerably.
And then that whole, I think the aspect of flagship killers that used to be there is nowhere.
They're using last generation chips.
So they use last year's chips. The flagship killers are still kind of hinging on one aspect, saying, "Oh, I've got that chipset," right? But people are not buying a one-trick pony anymore. People
generally, what I've noticed is in the value flagships is that yes, they'll bring it to a lower price point, last year's chip, but camera won't be that flagship.
It will not be. So it's basically so this 50K segment, right, has two kind of products. One is what the low cost extension would be, where they think, let's put a bigger processor on it, or let's get last year's processor and call it a day. So hence, it's become a flagship killer of sorts.
Yeah.
And it'll do well. And then the other set of brands are people who are looking at saying, these guys don't have the money to buy a flagship. Let's give them something cheap.
Yeah.
Right. So recently there was a phone that was launched at 52. I will not name that. But that is a view of somebody who's been making phones at 70, 80,000, basically $1,000, saying what would a cheap phone be like?
Yeah.
Right? Which is not right. Right. So this forgotten segment or the lost segment has not really gotten any love.
Okay.
It doesn't.
So you guys are going to love it a little bit, huh?
Hopefully. Hopefully we bring in that whole Xiaomi aspect to it.
Okay.
Yeah.
If we are able to kind of, get it into the segment, we are able to get a clearance from Leica that they are actually happy with the output. And if they've been working towards the hardware part, like I said earlier. If all of those boxes we get the right ticks, I think we can make a big enough impact.
Yeah. Agreed.
Sounds
Absolutely.
interesting. Chalo, cool.
Yeah.
I don't know how long this went. The battery of the camera will die. So let's just end this. And again, thanks Sandeep for the setup, and Anuj being so candid.
Thanks so much.
Yes,
I
thank
could
you,
ask
thank you.
anything.
Yes.
So I hope you guys liked it. And maybe we'll do it again after 2 years.
Yeah, we should.
Maybe, hopefully this time the gap is lesser.
Yeah,
we can do it more
So
often.
this is a new setup that we've got.
You got what do you call this? Podcast setup or what?
I think it's just, because what we realize in our office itself, we've got so many divergent views. We've got a lot of Me fans who've joined us.
Okay.
Right. So they've come in from that angle. Then there are a few of us who've been in the industry for a long time. I think all of us at Xiaomi have one common thing, that we are super excited about tech.
Yeah.
Right? Whether it is us or whether it is somebody else, right? So we are appreciative of somebody else bringing in great tech as well.
Yeah.
So we keep debating this. So we thought we'll start, having this set up and just put out those debates. Let's see,
Yeah, and I think it's a great start to that as well with you. Thanks for that as well.
And I think so in the long run, what I've seen is that I've been in this industry for quite some years. I think so now it's 14 years or whatever. A brand who consistently does not listen to users will eventually go down, no matter what it is.
Yeah.
You have to keep your ears open. You just can't, yes, you might ignore it for some time, But if you do it for long term, finished.
Correct. Yeah.
Anything that you know, I think, has an expiry date of 3 years. After 3 years, if you're not brushed up and if
Yeah.
you're not learned,
Yeah.
it's useless.
Correct.
Sure.
Correct. Yeah.
Cool.
True.
Chalo,
Thank
we'll
you.
end this.
Thanks so much.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Sandeep.
Yes. Thank you. Yes.
And guys, take care. Catch you later. And let me know, very long format videos like this, do you like it or not? Thank you, guys. Thank you.
Thank you.